welcoming all of you to just introduce yourself in the chat if you would like. You're welcome to drop your name, your LinkedIn profile, where you live, just so folks can, who potentially live in your area might want to connect. So really up to you. I try to let this be a networking opportunity if you want to use it as that. But we're here for the next hour or so. I'll stay a little late. There's 1,000 of you who have the HIRED Masterclass across the nation. And a lot of you come regularly. But overall, I want to make sure those of you who already have it basically have the the updated version first and foremost. So you guys are going to be the beta users, if you want to call it that. And then it gives you opportunity to give me feedback. Like, I want to hear from you guys. It's at no cost. So for those of you who already have the masterclass, it's at no cost. It's already just gifted to you. I just have to figure out how to attach your email to the new version. I haven't decided what to do with version 1.0. It will still be there. So don't worry. I think that's some of the concern is like, what's going to happen? What does the transition look like? Right. And in general, I just want you guys to know that nothing's going to go away all of a sudden. Right. It's a transition time, and I'm even open to leaving version 1.0 on there and just really leaving it as like a legacy product or something really, it's like it's the first of its kind, so to speak. Questions on just the update itself? I know it's kind of overdue. It's a timeline I made myself, so it's also like, I guess you guys aren't like, it's not like you guys have been necessarily asking for it, and it's something that I promised, so I did this to myself. I did all of this to myself. I do all of this to myself. So hi Megan, thanks for introducing yourself. So again, you're welcome to introduce yourself. Any questions in general about the update or the content or your benefits? I think sometimes anyone who's new to the office hours, you're not sure what comes with your masterclass purchase. You do get, obviously, weekly office hours. You're here today for that. And then we have the online unlimited online on-demand lessons. And then you get your one-on-one with me. So make sure that you get your one-on-one with me. It's through the automated calendar link. And then there will be, save the date, June 21st, Saturday, June 21st. I will be hosting the live version of the masterclass. So that'll be the first time I get to walk you through the entirety of the new version. So that's really exciting, to be honest. So the live masterclass of June 21st, save the date, will be using the new like slides, materials. So when you guys see the new version, there'll be a lot of remnants of the old version because the framework is the same, right? Nothing has changed in the framework. It's still HIRED stands for hone, intercept, reflect, embody dollars. I'll be hitting on that. Yeah, Megan, I'm so excited. Yes, yes, yes. And I want you guys to like spread the word that it's new, right? Like that would be great if you guys just let folks know, since you know the value of it, and coming to office hours has been a huge benefit to having the master class. I think that's something I don't promote enough. I don't really like rave enough about the fact that like, up to 20 of us at a time are meeting and talking about interviews and job searching, and it's a very active community. So, and then you get to hear from each other. Like, a lot of you in here have even shared that you've gone interviews. If anybody wants to share, I'm looking at Yuko and Cynthia. If you want to share how your interviews went, no pressure if you don't want to, but some of you did share even last week that you've been interviewing, and right. And then some of us get to hear about, actually coming through and getting hired. So there have been people who come back and share that they got the job offer. So it's a very, it's a good hour well spent, I guess you could say. Questions? Yeah, Yuko, do you want to share how? Hi.
Yeah, so I had my first HR interview last week, and then I'm actually having two this week, the new ones, so it's right after this one. Um, so I'm pretty excited about that. I think my first interview went pretty good. It was strange that the conversation started with like a salary negotiation. Like
Okay.
he opened like, "What's your expectation?" Because they didn't have any range listed on the posting. And I was like, and he said he can't disclose the range because of the whatever reasons. And so I had to tell him my kind of bottom line. And he was like, well, do you have flexibilities? And I was like, yeah, I do have some flexibilities. So then he was like, okay, let's move on with the interview then. Because he was like, I don't want to waste your time if this won't work for you. So that was kind of strange.
Okay. So that was the first, like he didn't even say, okay.
Oh, yeah. There was no question of like introduce yourself or walk me through your resume. There was none of that. He just directly went into that. And then he had a couple of like HR questions. And then he had three questions that he got from the hiring managers asking about the key like functions of the job. Like, tell me your experience of research communication, data analysis, and then I forgot the last one. But yeah, that was kind
Okay,
of.
and did you feel prepared for those?
I was prepared overall, but I think I prepared more for like the data analysis questions and then communication one. I knew it was coming, but somehow I felt kind of underprepared. I think I did okay, but I that's something
Okay.
that I could have done
So,
better.
no, it's okay. Yeah, I think you probably felt just like taken off guard from the first question, right? You were
Yeah.
probably thrown a little bit like, okay. Well, all of this to say that I guess, anything, a screening call is you can really expect just about anything. And usually that is rare, Yuko. That's
Okay.
not normal. That's the first time I've ever heard. Now, if they had raised it at the end, okay,
Right. But not a starter usually then.
correct.
Okay.
That is not normal. So don't feel like that's how like that's not normal. So
Right.
if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. You can email me about the numbers. If you want to know like how to move forward if this keeps getting raised, like, but also, if you want to just talk about it in a range, I'm happy to do so. It's kind of up to you. I just know it can get dicey with the numbers and yeah, I don't like it when they do that to you guys, but I also try to prepare you guys to at least not give a number first. Like the rule is let them disclose a number, like pressure them to disclose a number as much as you can. Say that you're willing to work with what they have. Um, so that kind of, you know what I mean? Like, I just
Hmm.
don't like it when they try to corner you
Yeah.
into a space. Did you feel like you were being cornered, or was it more just,
Um, he was like very open, like in the way that he was like, I don't want to waste your time if this won't work for you. And that felt reasonable to me.
so it was more of a disclosure?
Right. Like if I say
Okay.
like 150,000 or something crazy and then he's like, "Oh, we can only afford 70,000," then like it just won't work. So he was like, "No, this is in the spirit of like making sure this aligns for both of us." But somehow he was required not to disclose. Um, so I just didn't understand that part of it, but yeah.
Okay. 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 Yeah. Um, yeah, that's unfortunate that that's kind of how it started. And obviously you have your salary expectations. Like those of you who have your master's degree, I tell you, like you should, you could shoot for 70, 75,000, like reasonably in a lot of these roles, but then there are a lot of exceptions, right? They want to start you at 50 or at 65,000, or you surprisingly find something for 85,000. So there is still a wide like range that we're playing with in some of this. And there is, even when I give my estimations to my mentees, I'm giving them a range because I can't tell you exactly what. So I don't know if you're there yet where you feel like you understand what they may be wanting. If you want, I can give you my estimate.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So if there was no
Mhm.
salary disclosed,
On that job posting in particular?
yeah,
No. Yeah, there's.
no.
Hmm.
Okay, yeah, you choose to decide how to share it. So that's the best I could offer. Usually that's something I offer my mentees, but given you raised this, I'm happy to, now I'm curious like why they asked
Oh,
that right
you want
away.
me
And
to share like the job posting to see
if you
to
want, sure, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I just know you're like, I don't know if are you getting callbacks? Are you going to interview this week for them?
No, not for
Is that
them.
is a different one?
Completely different ones,
Oh,
yeah.
good for you. Look at you.
Yeah,
Just
I think
racking them up.
I'm pretty
Yay.
overwhelmed with like preparing for interviews, and then
Space them out, Yuko. Space them out. Space them out. Space them out.
right. I have one today and then one on Friday. So I try my best to space it out, but then I don't have childcare on Wednesday and
Ugh.
Thursday, so I kind of have to like jump into the preparation for the other one this afternoon, and then
Yeah,
yeah,
you don't have time. Yeah, there's limited time. Yeah,
yeah. So I
yeah.
haven't applied to a job this week yet because yesterday I was preparing for the one for today, and then I'm like, how am I
As long as you're busy, as long as you're, it's okay.
gonna?
Good for you. And use them all as practice. You know, it's all practice. Like, okay, great. That one did this to me. Okay, like how did I, how could I improve that response? And it's not really about how well you felt, but it was more like, did you actually anticipate that? I tell you guys that doing this prep helps you anticipate up to 75% of the questions. So if you felt like, of the three, one surprised you towards the ends, like the ones that he had asked you, that's pretty good. Like if you kind of were prepared for two of the three, that's, we're shooting for 3 out of 4 kind of thing.
Mhm.
That's, you can't anticipate all the questions. You can't like read their mind, but doing this and grounding yourself in their language as much as possible will help you prepare for that.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think I'm learning that the hired interview prep process is like you do the brain dump and then you anticipate questions and then like you don't write down your answers to these questions, but you just like practice based on the dump that you have done, like gathering from that, right? And I think I've gotten that kind of wrong in the first round, like trying to write down answers to all the questions I anticipated using the answers that I've dumped in the brain dump session. So it took like a lot longer to prepare.
Oh,
So,
yes, yes. And I can share, oh my God, I'm so glad you brought that up. I can share the slide that references the 4 stages so that you kind of slow down and kind of start to plug away where you're first doing the brain dumping against the job, right? The writing and the assessing of your skills. But then you take the next phase of, okay, assess that, like where's your strengths with your weaknesses across what you just wrote. Because when you do take a step back, you realize, oh, I'm not very strong in like this one aspect that they're disclosing. I don't know what to say about health equity. I don't know what to say about research. I don't know what to say. So it gives you a way to reflect on now anticipating the questions, which lead to what if they ask me about these skills, but also what if they ask me about something I don't have, and how you frame that into a positive no, into a growth opportunity, right? So I would say it all is to your benefit, into not being trapped into saying, no, I've never done that. Like you
mhm.
never, the goal is to say never, no, I've never done that. You always want to give them and then to the fourth phase of it is practicing the three-pronged winning response, which is frame your response, give a detailed relevant example, and then title dropping or like mentioning others in your response is part of that. So you do take time on, and the anticipation of the questions is really to help you practice that three-pronged response. So it's not that you have to anticipate all the possible questions, but you
Okay.
want them to be honest enough, right? Because I find my mentees sometimes are scared to go, when they interview prep with me, is we work backwards. I go to the hardest and work backwards. I'm like, what are you afraid of? What don't you feel strong in? What are you concerned they're going to ask you? And then I work backwards with them to then get to the stuff they feel good about. And even the stuff they feel good about surprises me. I'm like, yeah, that's not, that's missing these soft skills over here. Right. So it's kind of finding a balance of how do you framing it, and then giving a relevant example. That's where you guys sometimes want to use the STAR method: situation, task, action, result. Okay, fine. If that helps you fill that space in, that's fine, but it has to be relevant. The trap about that is that sometimes we're not using the right examples. So the most relevant example is the one that when you did your assessment, when you took a step back after your brain dumping, maybe you had a couple examples that were kind of similar. You have to weigh which one is worth, the value of it versus the others. So that's kind of part of the assessment. Let me pull up that slide um, that I'm referring to. In fact, it's exactly on my screen because I was looking at it as I was trying to figure out the stuff that I need to upload. It's probably why I was happy to share it, because I'm like, oh, it's on my screen. Okay. So this is the 4 phases of total recall, right? Total recall interview prep for those of you who haven't gotten to this part or like are still kind of gathering yourself around this approach. This is the way that I recommend you practice interviewing. So essentially, no one like if you spend more time prepping, it will naturally come out in your interview. But the problem is no one has told you like what to focus on in your prep. And so I'm giving you permission to actually write and journal first in this first phase, the brain dumping, the data dumping, kind of get it all out. Like, what have you, this is where I tell you guys, put away your resume. When they call you back and they say you're going to interview next week, you put away the resume and you pull up the job announcement. You're supposed to save every single job as a PDF or Word document that you apply to, right? Because you can't rely on these links to be available later on. They disappear. So you take the job announcement and you lead with the job. Total recall is about embodying the job. So you have to tie yourself against it. And the best way that I've done that is that you basically write against the job with a journal. Some people type it out, whatever you have to do to just ask yourself, where have I done something similar? Where have I done some, do I understand this term? Do I need to check the key terms guide? What do they mean by that? Why are they saying project management? Right? So what you have to kind of just data dump and get it all out. Then you assess the trends of what you just wrote. You identify your strengths, excuse me, you identify your strengths, weaknesses, and get more comfortable with the language that they're using. And then this is where you can research any documents they cite on the job. Right? So sometimes you guys are like, do I need to research the company, the people that I'm interviewing with? No. No, 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 no. Not once have I ever told my mentees to go research the company. Full stop. Like, no. And if anyone's been doing that and they got the job, then maybe it was more coincident. Like, but that is not part of the hired method. You get grounded on the job and you stick to the job announcement. If there is something that's mentioned in the job, like, oh, they're mentioning a bill that was passed or a strategic plan they developed or some sort of program, go find it. Go find it. See what it's about. That is fair game. If it's specifically cited in the job, go find that information. Then from there, you anticipate the right questions. So 75% of the questions can be correctly anticipated when you do this. Plus, you also identify the like common questions. Oops. These are the top 5 common questions. And maybe you'll see the top 5 resonate with you from what just was raised with you. It's always like fill in the blank with X. Tell us the time you did this. Tell us your experience in X. Tell us what you would do if X happened. That's like a scenario. The number 2 is more of a scenario one where they like tell you like a story. Number 3, how would you describe your ability to X? Right? Describe like, how, and that leads to like working with teams. And then 4, what does X mean to you? That's very common. What does health equity mean to you? What does access to care mean to you? Oh, I've heard, what does diversity mean to you? What does one of my mentees got, what does safeguarding mean to you? Safeguarding was a value that was cited on the job announcement. So yeah, it was a value of the company, but when she looked at the job, she's like, yep, safeguarding was in the job. So it's like these terms that even you've never heard of, but yet like you don't want to take that for granted if it's listed. And then walk us through your first day or month of hired. That's really testing your maturity. So the new version will include like call outs. Let me see if I can just I don't want to like lose. And then I would say, I guess I could share this. Oops. Yeah, it's okay. Share. And then I would say just be mindful of these traps. So the whole point of framing, I'll get to framing in a minute for your responses. Yuko and anyone else who's interviewing, Cynthia, if you're still on the call, I think you also were interviewing. The framing is the hardest part. So the framing on number one is that when you open your mouth, you try to just get to the actual example. But the whole point is to get grounded in the language, get grounded in the job, so that way you can really understand how you frame yourself and position yourself against their job. So when you practice the three-pronged winning response framing, a detail, example, and then mentioning others, this framing is the hardest. So don't beat yourself up if you feel like I didn't practice enough. I don't, I think even when I debriefed with my mentee recently who interviewed for a private college as to be their director of wellness, would be amazing if they're still in the process of that interview. She felt like she framed most, but not all. She's like, oh, I didn't frame that response. I'm like, it's okay, but you felt like you were practicing the other ones, right? She's like, yeah, I really, tried that approach. And that's the goal, is like, doesn't have to be every single time. The other thing is not raising enough detail in your response. Some of you are, when you jump into the detail, it's like you stay too much on the surface level. You stay like, how do I say it? This is where you undersell yourself. This is where you don't allow yourself to be the subject matter expert in your own career. In other words, when I talk with my mentees and they like think they're rambling, I'm like, oh my God, that say that instead. That's what you should have said. Like that it's this kind of interesting thing that happens where I know you guys have the response in you, but it sometimes takes out a little bit of pulling because the actual example needs to jump more into how did you do that, right? I tell you guys, resumes are what you did, interviews are how did you do that? Okay, so that's number two, is how did you do that? Not enough detail was being raised in your response. So that needs to be, that's why you write. That's why you exhaust yourself, right? When they say, tell us your experience in putting together committees, you better tell them what it means to work with leadership and making sure that you nominate the right people at the table, right? That you have enough representation of the diverse community that you're trying to like engage with, right? You better have like that planning phase basically considered, and then the implementation and the organization and the project management of it all, right? And then making sure that it's clear with, what is it? Sometimes you need charters and dashboards and, just ways to engage the members as far as like, this is your responsibilities, this is your time commitment. Okay, well, that information may not have been mentioned in the job, but you as the insider know that's what it takes. I've done similar things. I've put together work groups. I've done task forces. I've never done a committee, but I've done a task force. Oh, tell us more about that. Okay, that's the detail. Number three is not raising the strongest example. This is why you have to take a minute to weigh like the trends. In other words, your strengths and weaknesses overall, because sometimes you'd be surprised uh, where you might think you're strong in like coordination or project management, you're actually shining much more in another space because it has to do with, say, grants management. But you don't think of grants management as project management, but it could be, right? Depending on what you were doing. So that takes a little bit of practice. And then fourth is when you're not talking about others. This is why the three-pronged winning response is that you must include others in your response. In other words, include who you work next to, right? Working with leadership, working with subject matter experts, working with the nurse practitioners, working with the counselors, working with the teachers, like title dropping, titles, give us titles, who was in the room. And then not preparing a strong question for them, that's also a big, like, in other words, the strong question needs to be really about the work. And I think some of you are coming in about like, what's the growth opportunity here? And, not really focusing on about like, who's already at the table, or what's the target population for this initiative, or, can you tell me what you expect this year with the changes in the grant funding for this role, like not for this role, but for the work, right? Like the work and what's relevant. And I see there's a lot of questions in the chat. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I
Okay, I
think
just see there's a lot of questions. Hayuko says, go ahead. Does this
I think,
resonate with you? Uh-huh.
yeah, it does. And I think the question for you here is like, I had a lot of questions that I drafted up for that interview, but most of the questions specific to the work, the HR person couldn't answer. So I feel like maybe there's a meaning in separating
No, no,
question and
Yuko.
hiring manager.
No,
No?
no, no, that's the trap. Why? Because if you were to prepare a question about the work, even if that HR person cannot answer it, they will write it as a note to the manager.
Okay.
It is the notes that they're taking up. It's what are they going to move forward on your behalf? It's not even about whether they can answer it or not. Just keep that in mind because then it'll be like, oh, they had a great question.
So
Like,
it's more
but
like,
that's the manager's decision. Yeah, that's not they're not deciding whether to move you forward or they're just being told to call these 10 people and give me their like reply, fill out this form, tell me what they said. I don't know exactly how if they're emailing these people or if there's a form they're filling out. And usually when I've done it, there's been like, whether it's tracking and folders and, but at the end of the day, it's whatever notes they're taking that matters. Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. I know there's a lot and there's a lot of like hidden traps in this. So that's why it doesn't matter who you interview with. You have to treat it as it could be the one and done interview. Because sometimes I have had it where you're meeting with the project director immediately. They'll decide. They'll decide if they want to if they will decide if they need a second round. Clearly, I've experienced so many of these that you can count on round 2 and 3. Like it's very rare, if ever, one interview. Usually it's if it's a panel. If it's a panel, that is more likely to be one and done. But when it's just one person or HR screening, you can expect the next one to be the rest of the staff. So that's why it's set up that way. So just kind of hitting hard on the responses and how to shape them. The framing is part of the 3-pronged winning response. And that is more of you just giving yourself space between the exact example and their question and front-loading the richness of your background. Okay, so when they ask you, Yuko, what's your experience in project management? You don't just say, oh, in my last job, I supported, research for, HIV and like, no, you take a beat. And the whole point of framing is you just have to try to do it. There's no like wrong way to do it. It's more if you don't do it, that's what's wrong. So framing it would be like, in my last couple of roles, I've really been building my strength in project management, specifically as a graduate assistant, then as a research assistant. Not only, making sure I'm managing to just databases and, quality of documentation and reporting, but also, really helping the team stay up to date on our deliverables and goals associated to the work. In particular, my last job, I did this, right? So the framing is that little bit snippet of appreciation of a couple roles or breadth of your work or like the arc of it all. To then allow yourself to give them that detailed, rich response about how much you know of the thing they're asking about, while also including others. So that way it's not just me, I. That's also a hidden trap. A lot of you are still like, I did this, I did this, I did this. Okay, who else was in the room? Right? Public health is a team sport. Public health is a team sport. So catch yourself on that too, guys. Questions. Yes, it is module 103. It's currently available. Some of this is still, like I said, some of this will still be new. I'm sorry, some of this will still be what you've seen before. And I can, before we go, I can show you probably like a couple of the latest. We still have like 20 minutes. I did see, if I may address the question above, I saw Megan submit around the salary expectation. So this is another trap is it is not for you to try to negotiate or position yourself to get a high wage. It is more just to get through the screening process. So in fact, I just did this with a mentee yesterday because she was submitting and wasn't sure what to put. And I hate that they had asked her for what was your last wage? Like what was your pay, your most recent? I forget exactly what they put. I could check.
Yeah. So Zoila, I saw this. I was applying to Carter Center.
Megan.
Yeah.
Yes, Megan.
Mhm.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so I had
Yes.
submitted an application, and then they're like, follow up, answer these questions. And I was like, oh, okay. So I go in and they're like, what was your previous salary? What is your expectation? And I was like, excuse me. So I just put my expectation exactly what my old salary was. So like, and then I was like, I can just negotiate up if I have to because there was no range either.
No, they didn't give a range.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah. They
well,
do
I
that.
want them
They,
to know that I don't want to be paid less. So
oh,
I
this
don't
is,
know.
this
It was so
hurts.
dumb.
I don't, I feel like the asking the expected salary one is already annoying, but to ask us what you were recently paid is, I feel like that is, I know that's been
Borderline illegal.
illegal. I feel like that's illegal in some place. I can't
Well,
even
it's
track it
Georgia
anymore.
though.
Say
So
that again.
it's Carter Center is based in Georgia and I'm over here in Oregon and where that would not fly in
That's
Oregon.
what I'm saying. Yeah. In California, it doesn't fly. So, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes you just run into this practice.
Yeah.
So, for those of you who are running into it as well, I would say, it's okay to round your salary. That's what I told my mentee. I think when she was being asked similar with like what was your last, wage from your last job, I just told her like just round it to the next 5,000, like
Mhm.
just to kind of give yourself a little bit of breathing room. But in addition, it was also about just staying in a safe number for the expected.
Yeah.
So I know this is tricky because it's like, well, we don't even know what that means. And at the end of the day, I'm just trying to avoid you guys from putting like, you know, 80,000 or 90,000 when it's more like, how can you make sure you're weeded in? While there are some jobs that are, six-figure jobs and, you don't want to put like 65,000. I also tell you guys there's a scale and there's a range and there's a way to kind of read the jobs to give you that estimation, right? So I'm not saying just put 65 or 70 for all of these. If you are shooting for that higher salary range, there is a way for you to properly like estimate yourself. So sometimes when I am dealing with mentees who are trying to shoot for, say, the six figures, first of all, I'll be honest with them if it's even right? Like, I'm not going to waste your time if I already feel like, yeah, this is not going to give you at all close to what you're looking for. But the titles are a giveaway.
Mhm.
The reach and breadth of the work is a giveaway. Whether they disclose they want a master's degree or not is a giveaway. Whether it's supervisory or not is a giveaway. And then the other one is the sector, or like if they're known. The Carter Center.
Yeah, they're NGO. So,
Yeah, so I
but
think
they're
they're pretty
associated with
up
the
there.
university. It's a little weird. Um,
What was the title?
I think it was like program associate or something like that. So, um,
It
that's
wasn't senior. There wasn't like a senior attached. It was just program associate.
no, let me double check. I can't remember because
So
I know,
program
yeah, so
associate.
they are one that does like really good distinction between like senior and regular, just like entry level. And I don't think this was entry level. Let me see here.
And if I can open up the scale that I have, I can share it quickly. Um,
Yeah, this one was just a program associate, but yeah, I've seen like senior program associate, program director,
Yes.
like they have multiple levels under the same program usually. And so I try to do like kind of that mid one because I'm not entry level anymore, but
No, yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah,
tough.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, without even seeing this, I would guess I would have put like 65 as my
Yeah. Yeah.
expected just to be safe. They could still pay you say 79 or 76. Like there could still be some surprise as far as that's not even at all where they were. But I think it's more I don't want you guys to be weeded out,
Yeah.
to not be weeded out. And now I can't find what I need.
Well, I think that's helpful, at least kind of reading into the title and the duties
Good.
kind of at that. Yeah, because I was like, I have no idea what to do here.
I
So,
know.
yeah.
At least not going in blind, like what?
Yeah.
Good, good, good. Question in the meantime, Cynthia, do you have advice for keeping the interview momentum? Interviews are nerve-wracking. So what do you mean by the momentum? You want to keep getting callbacks?
Hi, Zoila.
Hi, how are you?
So I'm good. How are you?
Good, good.
So I had interviews, I think, what, 2 weeks ago. And so now I'm back in the process of applying for jobs again since I had spent the bulk of that time doing a
Okay.
lot of prepping. And so now we kind of have to rebuild the resume submission bank and then see when any of them give me callbacks for interviews. That could be 2 weeks out, that could be 4 weeks out, depending, like even longer, depending on their hiring process.
Right.
So I'm going to be losing that interview momentum. At the same time, I did an application for a big, I keep messing up the name because I think Big Brothers and Big Sisters. And I
Nice.
think one of I mean, you posted it. It's a great job. And I think at the end of it, it asks for two situational questions, and they want you to do a video posting or a write-up.
Oh God. So
And
they
so
want you
it
to do
was
an
like, tell
assignment
me a
right
time.
away?
Yeah,
Oh,
tell me about a time that you collaborated with someone, or tell me about a time you executed managing logistics. What was the result of it? And your hope is to do a video recording, but even then you have to kind of write out what you're going to say, practice it. And then at the end, I was just like, this is tough because I've been doing things like program planning. And so um, it takes time to build the momentum. It takes time to put in that effort. Do you have any advice for how to kind of keep that going? Because we do have to rebuild our
yeah.
bank of resume submissions and
Yeah,
all.
yeah, yeah. No, and it's okay. It's okay. I think definitely take it. A win is a win. You've got, you got some interview practice pretty early on. Or I guess within us, welcoming you in the community more than anything. I know you've been at it for a while, but at the end of the day, I think the momentum is what you're already doing, which is applying and then also taking into account that the ones from your old submissions don't mean that they're not going to call you back either. Like there's still companies that call back mentees like months, weeks later. You know what I mean? So I don't want you to feel like everything that you've submitted this far before or around the time that you've been interviewing won't call you back anymore, because those who are going to call you back are no, you could still get more people calling you back from your other submissions. So I think that's part of the patience of it all, is just knowing that you're doing everything you can, which does include getting back to the interviews. I tell my mentees we don't stop applying until you get the offer in writing. And my mentee who, seems to be getting pushed through for another interview for this private college, I'm expecting her to submit something next week. Like, if not this week, like you got to keep going. Like there's no reason not to. The conversation is one thing, and they could still be weighing other candidates, and then they want you to come on campus, and then they want you to do this, and then they got the then they got the reference checks, and then they need the background check, and then your check, even when they want you guys, it takes like a while. Like a while. And I know once you get in it, which I hope whether you or Yuko or anyone else on here are getting your traction, hopefully you get the second round and then the third round, and then you actually get that offer come through. Um, you still have to be patient through it all, even as things are going well. So I think it's more of letting them do their due diligence, letting the company organize themselves as they need to, because they are a mess. It is messy in the background. Who knows what needs to happen for the second round to kick in if you were to be pushed into the second round? Does that mean they need to agree on the questions? Does that mean they need to all have the same, who's going to be in the room, and can we knock these out in 1 week? And so-and-so's got to go to a conference. I don't got time for these interviews. Like, it's a mess, guys, in the background about just getting people hired. And I'm glad that I've experienced it as a hiring manager and having onboarded staff, not only my own direct staff, but others, like other volunteers and other staff across the organizations that I've worked at. So I've been able to see what happens in that background, but I'm just giving you that's what everyone else is experiencing, is the messiness of it all. So yeah, Cynthia, the momentum is, you have it. I think you have it. I just think, there's the lull after the interviews. I don't knock you for it. So yeah, do what you can to, get a break and get back to it. And network a little. If you find yourself too much behind the screen, go network, get out, find a meeting, like literally find, yes, you should try to be active in the community. This helps with your mental health, but also just, there's conferences, there's actually a couple conferences and webinars. I feel like I need to just blast out the things that I'm going to, because some of these things are free, and I just don't know where to put them all the time. But at the end of the day, I myself am finding things to, just go poke around and be in the community. Excuse me. So you just kind of have to find what works for you in that regard. So yeah, get out of the screen. We got to breathe. We got to breathe. Okay. I have on the screen the 5 factors of salary estimation. I think in my response to Megan, I had mentioned like breadth and scope of the work, and I realized that was not kind of clear on this slide, and I'm thinking I need to make that more clear. So I don't know if it's a 5th factor. I don't know if it's more like part of the sector and the industry. Because when I say sector industry, I'm thinking healthcare versus nonprofit. So I need to maybe add to this one in particular, just calling out that sometimes the breadth, scope, and reach of the work, like if it's global versus whether it's nationwide, sometimes makes a difference, right? So I will see like national program coordinators get cited 85,000 versus a local program coordinator gets cited 60,000, because of the national scope. And the title isn't always obvious, right? So it's not like it's more of like what's in the job. Like, can you tell if, it says you'll be working across 48 states? Like, what is it saying that you'll be doing? So this is how I try to estimate and kind of weigh the factors of like what to expect. There's no like wrong way to do it. This is kind of the ranges I give you guys on what to play with. I know some of you are like, what I'm saying is your expectation should be here. It's not that, oh, I don't, I have my master's in public health and I've only been able to get $60,000 in my last jobs. Okay, that's where we're starting. But what I'm telling you is I'm letting you know that this is what the market is willing to pay you. Right? So let's get you here. Right? So I'm not saying that's where you need to start. I'm just trying to help you guys recognize that you have these valuable skill sets that they're willing to pay.
Well, I have a question. If you're applying to a job that only requires a bachelor's, but maybe a master's is preferred or isn't even mentioned, would you still put that in that salary range that you hold a master's? I don't know. That's a little tricky.
That's if you look at title, that's if you look at, okay, so that's if you look at degree alone. So what I'm saying is when a company is disclosing master's preferred, required, desired, I do generally see folks getting cited or right, because they're not always putting it on the jobs, but what is the workforce getting at the end?
Yeah.
And when I've done my in fact, there's a page I have, God, I need to find it, but there was a page I had in my mentorship program where I disclose like these are like 10 salaries that my mentees got. Half of them were 75,000. You know, maybe there was one that was 65,000, but like of the 10, 5 were hitting 75,000. And that was just to give you guys more of an example, a sample of what the market is paying. Not that that's everyone, but that is what you guys can do it. You know, I'm just giving you hope that you can fight for that. And this is another slide to inform you. So none of this is perfect as far as like, yes, if you're a program coordinator, this is the exact range that you're going to get. No, but I'm giving you a little bit of a scale given that the titles are all over the place and you're quickly seeing it. And not every title is on here. Like I don't have administrator on here. I don't have navigator on here, right? I'm not trying to have everything on here, but what I'm trying to do is give you an appreciation for where you might fall in relation to these other titles. And you can kind of play with this on your own and see if you want to make one for yourself based on what you're learning. You're welcome to do that. Like I did this based on what I'm reading, based on what I'm seeing, based on helping people get through these types of titles. This is what the pattern I've been noticing. But also when I looked at these other, I hope my Zoom bar isn't in the way, but it says OneNet online, ONET online, and PayScale are other places that you can go for more appropriate like salary estimations and quotes. I know some people go to, is it Glassdoor? Do you guys use Glassdoor for this? I tell you guys not to use it, but is that the one that is the commercial one? Like there's basically online portals where you can ask for salary, like what is the market paying for this kind of title or job? And the wonky thing about public health or healthcare administration or public administration and these kind of public sector spaces is that they're poorly tracked and the titles are constantly evolving and changing across all the sectors, government, nonprofits, hospitals, right? And so because the safety net and the prevention of just our communities rely on all these sectors working together, they all are just doing their own thing as best they can. But when I was looking for, you know, a website to actually cite, the OnNet online and PayScale was kind of the best that I was able to find. And they also have their own issues. They don't have all the titles available, but they were able to get kind of sort of give me some insight on whether I was far off on some of this or not. So you guys can play with those sites as well when you get some time. Questions on this? Is this helpful? Megan, was this helpful? Have you been referencing this?
Yeah, I've looked at this and the previous slide that you pulled up, I've looked at that one too, but just having I had not thought of those when I ran into this issue, so that'll be really helpful moving
Yeah, this
forward
should
to be able
solve.
to
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, and there's your program associate right there
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the
And so I'm
yellow.
like, okay,
Yeah,
I see what they were looking for. Yeah, and especially because that one was bachelor's required and it didn't even list master's as a preferred, so it's
there you go.
probably
There you go.
a little lower. Yeah.
That's a hint.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it. Now that doesn't mean you can't apply. Great. Maybe you get an interview out of it. Great. Maybe you get quoted something and you learn, you know, at the end of the day, if you're getting called in, I think that's a win. And,
Hmm.
you know, so take it for what it is. I think I'm just trying to prevent you guys from getting constantly cited low wages and confused as to why.
Mhm.
It's like, well, this is why. Like the degree they're citing, the level of responsibilities that they're citing, is it supervisory or not? Is that the one you're talking about? This one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. I
Yeah.
mean, I had done this module when I was doing some interviews, and
Oh, good.
so I like had seen it before, but when I ran into this in the application phase, I was like, what do like
You
it just
guys,
didn't occur to
no,
me.
I get it. I get it. Yeah. And this part is weird because there's no right way to, it's like, this is just all the information and you make what you want out of it. Like, I don't really, like, even I don't have a I try to make a formula. I'm like, is there a formula? Like, that would be so cool if we can figure out a formula for this. But that was kind of my best approach to this was like, well, maybe I can give you guys weights against, what to pay attention to, and what to expect when you then find yourself being cited sort of here,
Yeah,
that you can feel like you fall at least
yeah. I
decently.
mean, I
Yeah.
think the entire master class is as close as you'll get as to a formula.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
So thank you for that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, of course, Megan. No, I appreciate that comment. Yeah. The whole thing you have to just take in. So, okay, questions on just salary. This was actually, I'm glad we raised that. We're coming up to about 5 more minutes, but I think this is a good way to remind everyone that the masterclass has lots and lots of information, that some of it will not change for this reason, because it's like, well, there's no other tool that I know of. I mean, I can keep pointing you guys to like, these kind of other websites and stuff, but as far as what I've been able to gather, some of it still holds true. In the new update, you'll see probably the first lesson does talk more about the kind of the current job market climate given the changes. So I tried to keep it as relevant as possible to what's going on right now, but I also wanted it to like hold the test of time, that these methods, will work for you also in like 2028 if you're watching it in 2028. God willing, right? Into the future. So yeah, so this is more for you to take in. I feel like if you got the offer, that's the goal. Like that's the hardest part. Like, to me, the salary negotiation, you don't want to fumble. You don't want to fumble the bag, so to speak. But to me, this is kind of like the nice afterthought of like, yay, now I get to talk about numbers and really like, enjoy the actual onboarding process and, the fruits of my labor. So yeah, so I would say that's kind of the cherry on top of the master class is module 104 towards the end. Okay, you go by. I hope your interview goes well. Yes, Glassdoor. Okay, great. Okay, everyone. Well, stay tuned. That's kind of all I have, unless anyone else has a burning question before we jump off. But I wanted to get back to fixing this update and making sure it finally is done. Thanks for coming to office hours. Have a wonderful day. Good luck to all of you who are interviewing, and we'll keep it going. All right. Bye. Thanks for coming.